Today, we're going to be refurbing a GameCube controller along with installing our new PBT button sets. To begin, you're going to need a Y1 screwdriver, a new set of membranes, our PBT buttons, a can of deoxit, as well as some form of compressed air to clean your board. To begin, let's go ahead and grab our screwdriver with our Y1 bit. You'll notice mine's a bit rusty as it's a bit old. And we'll want to go ahead and start with taking all 6 of the tri-wing screws out of the back of the GameCube controller. Now that we've got all 6 screws out, we can go ahead and separate the 3 parts of our controller: the back half, front half, and the motherboard. We'll be starting with the motherboard. To begin our refurb process, we'll first want to clean all the contacts on the motherboard. Those are all these points that are under the A, B, X, Y start D-pad buttons, as well as the 2 contacts each for both of the triggers. We have a slider as well as a bumper contact that the membrane touches. To clean all those contacts, we're going to be using Deoxit D5. This is a very good contact cleaner that'll make quick work of all the contacts. All we need to do is spray a little bit into each of the channels that the sliders ride on. From there, we'll want to make a small puddle of deoxit and use a Q-tip to go ahead and refurb all the other buttons and contacts that aren't sliders. We're also going to go ahead and swap out the stick caps for a brand new set from XYAB. They simply just pull up from the sticks and they'll pop off just like that. All we have to do is press fit on the new sticks as well. While we're inside the console, we figured we'd also go ahead and add a snapback module. To do that, we need to first remove these plastic tabs on the front of the PCB by simply pushing down. This will release this entire plastic frame and allow us to slide out the 2 button PCBs on either side. The wire simply gets unhooked and then the entire PCB should just slide out of the plastic. To install the snapback module, all we have to do is line it up with the 4 points on the PCB that align with the joystick. From there, we have to use some solder, flux, and a soldering iron to go ahead and solder it in place. You'll want to go ahead and keep your iron at roughly 350 degrees C, and remember to use flux for all of your soldering. You may have to use tweezers or another tool like that to help hold the PCB down, as it does get very hot. Lastly, always remember to remove any flux that you leave on the board. Over time, flux can become corrosive even if it's labeled as no clean flux. So we'll go ahead and use a little bit of flux remover to clean all that off. We'll also go ahead and grab the little bit of flux remaining from the factory in the top left. As you can see, the flux remover leaves a little bit of a liquid on the board. So we're going to go ahead and use compressed air to spray all of the liquid away. Now we can go ahead and replace the plastic bracket back onto the PCB. We simply have to slide the button PCBs back into place and hook the wires into the plastic. This will repeat on both sides, and then the plastic will sit down onto the PCB and snap back into place. Now, with the PCB finished, let's go ahead and swap out our buttons. To begin, let's set aside our Z button, but we can go ahead and remove all the other buttons and their membranes. Now, we can go ahead and place our new PBT button set into place. When you get to the Z button, you'll want to look at the pegs that hold the button in place. Notice on the OEM button, the longer peg is on top. You'll want to find the aftermarket button that matches this setup. The other button is for an upcoming project. Once you found the button that matches the OEM button with a longer peg on top and a shorter one on bottom, you'll need to transfer the metal tab from the OEM button to the PBT one. We recommend using something like tweezers to help pull out the metal from the OEM button. Once we have the new Z button in place, we can go ahead and grab our new pack of membranes. We're going to go ahead and replace all the membranes on the controller while we're at it. Finally, we can go ahead and focus on the back half of the controller with swapping out the two trigger buttons. To begin, we need to go ahead and remove two Phillips screws that are holding down a locking mechanism holding the button in place. Once we have the gate up and out of the way, and it's no longer locking the button in place, we can go ahead and squeeze the button down to the membrane and slide both the membrane and the button up and out of the shell. Next, we need to remove the metal clip holding the button to the membrane housing. Simply unclip the metal from the button and the button should lift away. From here, we can pull the spring off and fully remove the metal clip from the membrane housing. We'll also want to go ahead and remove the membrane from the membrane housing. This may be easier using the button, or you can use something like a screwdriver to simply poke the membrane out the other side. From here, we'll go ahead and insert the new membrane into the membrane housing. With the membrane in its housing, we can go ahead and put the spring back on as well. From here, we can grab our new button. Our new button designs also come with trigger plugs. They come with two different sizes, a small size trigger plug and a larger sized. We prefer the smaller size trigger plug, so we'll go ahead and insert that into our button before we can go ahead and put our button and membrane set back together. The button and membrane go back together just like it was OEM, minus that metal clip. When you're getting ready to place the buttons back into the housing, you'll want to make sure that the plastic tabs on the membrane housing are facing upwards. This will help lock into that locking collar that keeps all the buttons in place. Once you have the housing and the button back in place, go ahead and grab the locking collar, place it over top, and secure it down with the two screws. From here, you can repeat this entire process to the right side button. Finally, we can put everything back together just the way we found it. We can go ahead and grab our front plate and place our motherboard into the shell. You'll want to make sure that the two sliders are at the very top positions. Finally, before you can close the back half, you'll want to make sure that your wire is routed, like so, with the zip tie in its correct position so that the entire controller closes. Finally, we can go ahead and snap the back half of our controller onto the rest of our shell. From here, we can flip the entire assembly over and test out some of our buttons before we secure it down with the screws. If you're happy with your buttons, you can go ahead and screw down all 6 screws to hold the controller together. That's all there really is to it. As long as you followed this guide exactly, you should have a fully refurbished GameCube controller. If you want to see more content like this, please be sure to subscribe, check out our wiki down below, and as always, thanks for watching.